Chapter 216. Still in shock, Scotty was brought back to her senses by Justin's voice. She shook her head and replied, I'm not quite sure. It seems he might be in the profound reality realm too. Her last few words were spoken very softly, lacking any confidence. Previously at the Zell's home, she had witnessed both Father Lloyd and Father Cillian treating this man with the utmost respect. Father Lloyd had the strength of a stage 9 Grandmaster. Anyone who could make him cautious would have to have a level of cultivation surpassing his. Zacharias stood in the center of the martial arts arena, placing his hand on his heart and facing the surrounding audience. He said, "When friends come from afar, is it not a joy today? The Ihara Martial Arts School from Sagan and my Johnford Hero Martial Arts School will have a friendly sparring. I hereby warmly welcome everyone." As soon as he was done talking, a long-haired young man from Ihara Martial Arts School, wearing wooden clogs, stepped forward. "We're here to challenge your school today. If you lose, you must close down your martial arts school, as per the rules." Upon hearing this, the venue went silent. Zacharias' face darkened. He knew they were here to challenge his school. If he lost, he would naturally close the martial arts school. However, before this, he intended to give a proper speech. Respect and morality came before martial arts. How dare a student from the Ihara Martial Arts School make such a bold statement publicly? Moreover, Nui did not seem upset at his students' lack of tact. They were not just here to challenge, they were here to cause trouble. After waiting a full minute without any response from Nui, Zacharias slowly said, "If that's the case, let's just start." He then slowly left the arena. The long-haired young man slightly waved his hand, and 5 students from his school marched toward the arena. 2 were at stage 5 of the energy cultivation realm. 2 were at stage 5 of the Grandmaster realm, and the last was at stage 1 of the Great Grandmaster realm. Then, Nash turned to look at the students from the Hero Martial Arts School. Most were in the energy cultivation realm. 3 were Grandmasters, and 2 were Great Grandmasters. The 3 Grandmasters were only at stage 3, and the Great Grandmaster was only at stage 1. Zachariah nodded toward his students, and 2 young students at stage 5 of the energy cultivation realm stepped forward. They were followed by 2 men in their 30s, both stage 3 Grandmasters. Lastly, a limping stage 1 Great Grandmaster approached the arena. Nash could not help but comment, "Good heavens, your martial arts school is really in a sad state, isn't it?" The other side's 2 stage 5 Grandmasters could easily suppress Hero Martial Arts School's stage 3 Grandmasters, and their only credible Great Grandmaster was a cripple. Fortunately, both sides had practitioners in stage 5 of the energy cultivation realm. Zachariah frowned and said, "I didn't expect the Ihara Martial Arts School to come, and I didn't expect their strength to be this strong." At this moment, both sides stood facing each other in the middle of the martial arts arena. "Hold on." Nash stood up from his chair, and everyone looked puzzled. Martial arts should be fair and just. The difference in the cultivation levels between the students of the Ihara Martial Arts School and the Hero Martial Arts School is too great. There's no fairness at all. Either forbid the use of inner energy or replace them with people of equal cultivation realm. Nash's voice echoed like it was amplified, reaching everyone's ears. The long-haired young man scoffed. "Can't the Hero Martial Arts School even produce a single stage 5 Grandmaster?" Nash glanced at him indifferently. "Who are you? Was I talking to you?" The young man looked stunned, then clenched his fists, ready to teach this disrespectful guy a lesson. He was the beloved grandson of the Green Bamboo Association's hidden ghost juggernaut and possessed strength at stage 9 of the energy cultivation realm. He practically owned the city of Sagan. Every influential family and rich sons of wealthy families would have to treat him with the utmost respect. "Step back," Nui spoke calmly. "Grandpa, enough." Nui's gaze turned icy. Chapter 217. The long-haired young man swallowed his saliva and reluctantly stepped aside. After that, Nui looked at Nash and said, "We'll follow your suggestion." Hence, the Ihara Martial Arts School replaced their 2 stage 5 Grandmasters with stage 3 Grandmasters. Nash continued, "The Great Grandmaster from the Hero Martial Arts School has a limp. You need to bring someone with a similar physical disadvantage. Justin, sitting beside the grand chair, audibly gasped. The audience remained silent. The heirs and heiresses of the 5 elite families were also dumbfounded. Were matching martial ranks not enough? Now physical disadvantages were also being considered? The long-haired young man was at the end of his patience. Grandpa, this guy is simply asking for trouble. Let me teach him a lesson. Slowly, Nui unsheathed the sword hanging by his waist. Seeing this, Kai and Duncan immediately smirked. As Nash was closely related to the Skies and had a sworn brother like Felix Xing, Green Bamboo Association killing Nash directly would only anger the Skies and the Warden of the Northern Territory. Hence, the 6 juggernauts thought of another way. They had planned to target those around Nash. If Nash made the first move, they would have an excuse. Even if they killed Nash afterward, neither the Skies nor the Warden of the Northern Territory would have any objections. Under these circumstances, it seemed like Hidden Ghost Juggernaut was losing his patience. Whether Hidden Ghost Juggernaut would kill Nash and whether Green Bamboo Association would anger the Skies and the Warden of the Northern Territory had nothing to do with them. They just wanted to see Nash die. Simon, being a part of the Green Bamboo Association, noticed Hidden Ghost Juggernaut's intention to take action and frowned slightly. He was wondering if he should go up and give him a reminder. Suddenly, a sharp blade aura shot out, severing the right leg of the Stage 1 Grade Grandmaster from the Era Martial Arts School at the knee. Blood splattered across the arena. The scene fell into a deathly silence. The long-haired young man was stunned as his mind went blank. What just happened? Was his grandfather not supposed to kill that young man? Why did he sever the leg of his own disciple? In the middle of the arena, the one-legged Great Grandmaster from the Ihara Martial Arts School stood firmly without any emotional change on his face. His cold gaze filled with murderous intent. Sir, can we start the duel now? Nui slowly lifted his gaze to Nash. If Nash wanted fairness, he would give him fairness. He believed his disciple would surely crush any opponent of the same rank. Go ahead. The ruthlessness displayed by Nui was beyond Nash's imagination. He had already helped the Hero Martial Arts School lower the difficulty of the first match. Whether they could win or not was up to fate. Begin, Nui said lightly. As he said this, the one-legged Grade Grandmaster lunged at the limping Grade Grandmaster. The other pairs also started their duels immediately. To Nash's surprise, the limping Grade Grandmaster was constantly retreating under the attacks of the one-legged Grade Grandmaster. Nash shook his head in disappointment. He might have inner strength, but his martial foundation is weak. It'll be hard for him to win. With a flushed face, Zacharias said, "This is my elder brother's grandson, Christian. He's 32 years old. He had been running a martial arts school abroad, but he offended the local politicians and got shot in the leg. Hence, he's been focusing on cultivating his internal strength. At the age of 32, reaching the rank of Stage 1 Grade Grandmaster was a matter of pride for the Zables. They had hoped to showcase Christian's prowess today, but they had not expected the formidable strength of the Ihara Martial Arts School. Zacharias' previous confidence and vigor were now gone. Nash picked up his teacup and took a sip of hot tea, saying, "If he targets the opponent's right leg, there might still be a glimmer of hope." Chapter 218. Attacking his right leg, which was just severed, would be a dishonorable victory, even if we do win in the end, Zacharias said with a bitter smile. Being the president of the Martial Arts Association and the head of the Hero Martial Arts School, he primarily promoted martial arts culture. To win with such a low blow would disgrace him if word got out. Nash glanced at Zachariah and chuckled, then prepared to shut down. They were here to cause trouble, yet the old man was still talking about martial virtue. Even in ancient wars, there was the concept of deceiving the enemy. Grandpa, at this critical moment, let's not think about cultural spirit anymore. Scotty could not stand it anymore and spoke up, her face full of resentment. No, that's what they'll do. But we have to be ourselves. Even if we close the school, I won't let Christian lose his martial virtue," Zacharias stated with a determined look. The energy cultivation realm practitioner from the Ihara martial arts school sent the one from the Hero martial arts school flying. The young martial artist who was thrown out had a collapsed chest and was spitting blood continuously. Seeing this, Zacharias' whole body trembled. It had been less than a minute. Both were at stage 5 of the energy cultivation realm, yet the practitioner from his school did not even last a minute. The Hero martial arts school had faced challenges in the past, but never something like this. Fortunately, another energy cultivation realm practitioner from his school defeated his opponent. This gave Zacharias some relief. However, just then, a grandmaster from the Hero martial arts school was kicked in the groin by a grandmaster from the Ihara martial arts school. Oh! The grandmaster from the Hero martial arts school screamed like a slaughtered pig, then rolled on the ground clutching his crotch, his loose white pants stained with bright red blood. Dishonorable! Zacharias' eyes were filled with rage, and his fists were clenched tightly. The grandmaster from the Ihara martial arts school did not stop there. He leaped up and aimed his knee at the neck of the grandmaster from the Hero martial arts school. If hit, the latter would undoubtedly die. Was this a sparring competition? It was more like murder. Nash threw the lid of his teacup, and the descending grandmaster from the Ihara martial arts school was immediately thrown back. Nui did not get angry at Nash's intervention. Instead, he had a faint smile on his face. Seeing the condition of his companion, another grandmaster from the Hero martial arts school exploded in rage, launching a fierce attack on the opponent. The grandmaster from the Ihara martial arts school was quickly defeated and raised his hands in surrender. People from both sides immediately carried the injured down. Looking at the two young men lying on the ground, tears appeared in Zacharias' eyes. He had adopted both of them from an orphanage and watched them grow up. Now, one had his manhood destroyed, and the other was bleeding profusely from his mouth and nose. He felt a sharp pain in his heart. With teary eyes, Scotty tugged at Nash's sleeve. "Nash! Quick! Save them!" Nash stood up and walked to the two injured men. He pressed a few trigger points on the energy cultivation realm practitioner, and the bleeding from his mouth and nose slowed down before stopping. Nash then turned to the grandmaster. "Take off his pants." Two fellow students did as instructed. Seeing the mangled and unrecognizable mess, their foreheads throbbed with anger. "That part can't be saved, but his life can be." Nash shook his head and sighed, pressing a few vital points on him. Hearing Nash's words, the young grandmaster fainted. After tending to their injuries, Nash returned to his chair and sat down. Chapter 219. The martial arts of the Ihara martial arts school originated from the ancient martial arts of Summer Nation. Moreover, they were all vicious techniques from deviant factions. In this current age of peace, Summer mostly emphasized physical fitness and self-cultivation. However, the martial arts of the Ihara martial arts school were purely lethal techniques. Nui looked at Nash, his eyes filled with a challenging intent. At that moment, a loud noise echoed from the martial arts stage. Christian's lame leg was brutally punched by the amputated Great Grandmaster. Christian knelt on one foot while also slapping the injured right leg of the amputated Great Grandmaster. The amputated Great Grandmaster could not dodge in time, and the inner energy in his right leg was scattered, causing a lot of blood to splatter. With a surge of inner energy, Christian suddenly rose, his knee striking the amputated Great Grandmaster's chin. Blood flowed from the amputated Great Grandmaster's orifices, and he was thrown out of the martial arts stage. In the end, Christian, without anyone's instigation, attacked the amputated Great Grandmaster's right leg to win. The long-haired young man yelled, "To ensure fairness, my martial brother got his right leg amputated for this match. What did you prove in winning by attacking that very leg?" "Ugh, that's so shameful, isn't it? He got his leg amputated for fairness. How heroic is that?" Several dubious-looking self-media bloggers shouted loudly. They had all been bribed by Kai to cause trouble for the Hero martial arts school. Christian silently limped off the martial arts stage. As soon as Christian stepped off the stage, Zacharias slapped him and said, "You scoundrel! Have you forgotten what I taught you?" "Grandpa!" Scotty quickly hugged her grandpa's arm, Chris was just thinking about the martial arts school. Pointing at the door, Zachariah said, "Get out. Leave. Hero Martial Arts School will not have you anymore." Silently, under the pointing and whispering of everyone, Christian headed toward the exit. Nash sneered, muttering to himself, "Truly stubborn. No wonder the students he teaches are so weak." In the second match, the long-haired young man faced Scotty. Nui took the initiative to say, "The second match is between my grandson and Miss Scotty, the granddaughter of Master Zabel. Both parties are not allowed to use inner energy. What do you think, Mr. Calcraft?" He was not concerned about the outcome of the first match. The second and third matches were the main events. His targets were Scotty and Zachariah. In these two matches, they determined superiority and the matter of life and death. Agreed. Zachariah had already accepted the challenge letter. Nash could not find a reason to refuse. The long-haired young man walked to the martial arts stage, twisted his neck, and said with a sinister smile, "Miss Scotty, I won't be holding back now." Scotty coldly snorted, "Neither will I." Saying that, she lunged, trying to grab the long-haired young man's neck. The long-haired young man was quick to react, dodging her attack and grabbing Scotty's wrist, his left shoulder harshly colliding with Scotty. Scotty slightly sidestepped to avoid the hit, her left elbow aiming for the young man's face. The long-haired young man raised his left hand to block and quickly threw a punch with his right fist, aiming for Scotty's throat. Both of them moved very fast. The young man's moves became more ruthless, and Scotty became more alarmed. Nash's clear-knuckled fingers tapped on the armrest of his chair. Scotty was using the palm punches technique. It was a martial art that primarily consisted of 5 basic palm techniques: throwing, slapping, piercing, chopping, and gathering. Its distinctive feature was attacking with the palm, turning the hand into a fist for pinpoint strikes, and retracting with the palm. The long-haired young man missed a punch. Scotty grabbed his wrist and performed an over-the-shoulder throw. Despite her petite figure, she managed to throw the long-haired young man into the air. Just as he was about to crash on the ground, a cruel smile appeared on his lips. Seeing his smiling face, Scotty's pupils shrank. She immediately used her inner energy to protect her chest. However, it was too late. Chapter 220. The long-haired young man suddenly punched Scotty in the chest with his other hand. Scotty's body arched backward like a shrimp. The back of her white martial arts uniform was blown out, revealing a hole the size of a fist. "Scotty!" Nash's brows furrowed, and he turned into a blur as he dashed toward the martial arts stage. At the same time, Nui, too, transformed into a blur and ran over. Nash lifted his foot to kick the long-haired young man who had fallen to the ground. That was when Nui's foot collided with Nash's. A loud explosion echoed. The ground of the martial arts stage shattered. A small stone went through one of the young man's eyes. Nui retreated 3 steps before stopping. Nash knelt down, cradling Scotty in his arms to examine her injuries. Her cardiovascular system had been severely damaged, the ribs in her chest were shattered, and she was in critical condition. Nash poured his true energy into Scotty's heart to stabilize her condition. Nash's face turned gloomy to the extreme. He had expected that the Ihara Martial Arts School would resort to dirty tricks. What he had not expected was for them to blatantly break the rules in front of so many people. Scotty was Hira's close friend. She once risked her life to protect Hira. Now that Scotty had been ambushed, anger surged in Nash's heart. The Grim Reaper's wrath. Could they withstand it? Skate! Skate! Zachariah, who rushed over, was as pale as paper. Tears formed in Justin's eyes. "Skate, please wake up." The rest of the students from the martial arts school had their eyes turned crimson. They remembered how good Scotty was to them. She often took them out for lavish feasts and gave them thoughtful gifts on special occasions. Knowing Scotty had been ambushed and her condition was uncertain, they felt heartbroken. Mr. Calcraft, can Skate be saved?" As if drained of all strength, Zachariah asked Nash in a daze. "She can be saved." After stabilizing Scotty's condition, Nash carried her toward the main hall of the martial arts school. Nui bowed and said, "Mr. Zabel, my grandson was impulsive and violated the challenge rules. We concede the second round. You've won 2 out of 3 rounds, and you're today's victor." Actually, Nui had not expected his grandson to rashly break the rules. According to the initial plan, they would deliberately lose the first round. In the second, the grandson would use his martial arts to kill Scotty. This way, they could proceed to the third round. By the time he killed Zachariah, Nash would have definitely taken action. However, his grandson's breach of the rules meant they could not proceed to the third round. Given the power of the strike to Scotty's heart with his grandson's power in Stage 9 of the energy cultivation realm, even a deity could not save her. Killing Scotty was a way to reclaim some revenge for Crow. Upon hearing Nui's words, Zachariah spat out blood in anger and fainted. Nui smiled faintly and left with the members of the Ihara Martial Arts School. Helena sent the photos she had taken to Hira, along with a message. Hira, come to Hero Martial Arts School quickly if you want to see your best friend one last time. Kai, seeing that half of his objective had been achieved, was in a good mood. Simon, I'd like to take Hidden Ghost Juggernaut to the Chateau Hotel for dinner tonight. Simon smiled slightly. I'll arrange it immediately. Olivia stood up. Chateau Hotel will be closed tonight. Chapter 221. Olivia was not joking. With the skies gone, she became the owner of the Chateau Hotel. Hidden Ghost Juggernaut was from the Nihon clan. The Chateau Hotel had a rule forbidding any Nihon clan members. The crowd that had gathered quickly dispersed. The martial arts confrontation between the Ihara Martial Arts School and the Hero Martial Arts School went viral on the internet. Due to its students' lack of martial virtue, the Hero Martial Arts School expelled the student, garnering unanimous praise from netizens. However, there were also many who criticized, thinking Zachariah was making a mountain out of a molehill and was obstinate. All in all, the Hero Martial Arts School preserved its reputation but at a heavy cost. At the Brogue branch office, Hero was showing Drake Group's clients around the production line. Upon seeing the photo and message Helena sent, she felt as if she was struck by lightning. Without even saying goodbye, she rushed to the Hero Martial Arts School immediately. At the Watson estate, Walter had already heard about the incident at the Hero Martial Arts School. With a grim expression, he called Kai. Anything you need? Kai's indifferent voice came over the phone. Were you involved in the incident involving the Zables? Walter asked in a neither cold nor warm tone. What does a conflict between two martial arts schools have to do with me? Consider this a warning. Stay away from Simon Lane, or you'll get burned, and no one will be able to save you, Walter said with an icy tone. Zachariah was the president of the Johnford Martial Arts Association, knew the leader of the Northern Territory Army, Stellar, and even protected the warden of the Northern Territory, Felix. More importantly, his granddaughter, Scotty, was close friends with Nash's girlfriend. During the martial arts competition, Nash stood up for the Zables. This showed how much the Zables meant to Nash. With Scotty critically injured and her life hanging by a thread, Nash would surely be furious. A storm was brewing in Johnford. At that time, Kai was enjoying a fancy meal by the poolside of Royal Bay Villa with Simon and Duncan. Helena poured wine for Kai with a gleeful expression. Duncan adjusted his glasses with a sly grin. Scotty got hit in the heart by a practitioner at Stage 9 in the energy cultivation realm. Even the most powerful deity can't save her. Given Scotty and Hira's relationship, Hira must be devastated. And Nash probably isn't in high spirits either. He raised his wine glass to Simon. It's all thanks to Mr. Simon Lane for taking revenge for us. Duncan and Kai had lost over 4 billion because of Nash. This debt had to be repaid in blood. Simon laughed. I wasn't seeking revenge for your sake. Nash Calcraft was arrogant, messing with people from my Green Bamboo Association. He deserves to die. Just as he finished speaking, Simon's phone, which was on the table, started ringing. It was his grandfather calling. Simon set down his wine glass and answered. Grandpa, are you looking for me? Find a private place. Howard's deep voice sounded from the phone. Simon got up and moved to a corner. Go ahead, Grandpa. Sitting on his couch, Howard lightly said, this time, when dealing with Nash, make sure you drag the other families down with you. Simon dismissively replied, Grandpa, you're being overly cautious. With 6 of the juggernauts from our Green Bamboo Association, we have more than enough power to deal with Nash. Howard snorted. Just do as I say. What's with the unnecessary talk? Simon reluctantly replied. All right, I understand. The lease sided with Nash, so getting them involved might be tricky. However, both Kai and Duncan were already deeply involved. They probably wanted to get rid of Nash even more than Simon did. As for getting the little girl from the Zell family involved, it would not make much difference. Simon returned to the dining table and sat down. Suddenly, Kai said, Simon, can you eliminate Bianca in this afternoon's boxing match? Simon nodded with full confidence. No problem. Wanda York is grim-faced Juggernaut's granddaughter. She trained under the king of fighter Thorson in recent years. If she participates in the world boxing competition, she'll surely win this year's female golden belt. Kai nodded and smiled. I won't be attending this afternoon's boxing match then. Also, in a couple of days, I'm planning to take Helena on an overseas trip. Chapter 222. Kai knew that his grandfather would not harm him. When advised to stay away from Simon, he understood it was for his own good. He did not share a deep friendship with Simon, who merely served as a pawn against Nash. After angering Nash, Kai planned to leave the country temporarily. When did you get that idea, Kai? Helena looked at Kai in astonishment. Her face radiated with joy and happiness. She was eager to watch the afternoon boxing match, wanting to see Wanda beat Bianca up. However, the news of Kai taking her on a trip made other events seem insignificant. It was an excellent opportunity to bond with Kai. Kai tilted Helena's chin and gave her a quick kiss, saying, I made this decision a while ago. In a few days, there's an investor meeting for my overseas company. I'll introduce you to some new friends then. Duncan swirled his wine and chuckled. What a coincidence. I'm leaving the country in a few days too, planning to pick up my sister who's about to graduate. Duncan was a sharp guy. Hearing that Kai was going abroad, he immediately guessed Kai's intention to distance himself from the brewing storm. Given Nash's undeniable strength and the six Juggernauts' attack on Nash's close associates, they seemed to be treading dangerous ground. Exiting this scene was the smart choice. Mr. Kai, Mr. Duncan, isn't this a bit unfair? Simon squinted at the two. The meaning behind his grandfather's call became clear. While he bore his own grudges against Nash, Kai and Duncan disliked him just as much. They were all in the same tricky situation, but Kai and Duncan wanted out, leaving Simon as the potential scapegoat. Kai lifted his glass with a smile. Mr. Lane, thanks for aiding our revenge. Once I return from abroad, I'll treat you to a grand meal at the Chateau Hotel. Helena and Duncan raised their glasses in response. Simon remarked while holding his drink, that call earlier was from my grandfather. He mentioned that hiring the six Juggernauts cost 900 million. The implication was clear. They would need to cough up 300 million each if they wanted a way out. Duncan sipped his wine. Experience had indeed made Howard wiser. He likely called Duncan to implicate him and Kai together. Kai, narrowing his eyes, looked toward the distant garden, apparently waiting for Duncan's response. Smirking faintly, Simon said, The hidden ghost Juggernaut is taking the lead on this. I can offer him 200 million, while the remaining 100 million will be split among the other 5 Juggernauts as a getaway fund. He dialed a number and turned on speaker mode. What is it? A cold female voice came from the other end. Kai and Duncan glanced at the phone, and the caller ID was Wanda York. Simon chuckled. Let's cancel the afternoon boxing match. We've achieved our goal. Wanda responded coldly. Are you joking? Simon hurriedly said, I'll give you 15 million. After a brief pause, Wanda agreed. Deal. I'll cover the 300 million. Kai narrowed his eyes and spoke. His animosity toward Nash was evident. A mere attack against Scotty was not enough to settle his anger. What 300 million? Wanda asked, confused. Simon hung up promptly. The 900 million was a number he came up with. The 6 Juggernauts supported them due to a favor the president owed his grandfather. Mr. Duncan, your move? Simon looked at Duncan with a playful smirk. Chapter 223. Kai was all in. Was Duncan still thinking of jumping ship? Mr. Lane, I'm not like you. My grandfather keeps a tight grip on the finances. I only get 500 to 700 grand as pocket money every month. That's not even enough for my daily expenses. The money I invested with Kai earlier was borrowed from my uncles, Duncan said with a worried expression. Simon lit a cigarette in silence, understanding the Dorson situation. The Dorson family was large, with the patriarch having several sons and even more grandsons. While the other grandsons were studying abroad, only Duncan remained in the country. It was feasible for Duncan to cough up a few 100,000 to a few million, but 300 million was indeed a stretch. That's a pity. We might only get rid of Bianca. However, it'll at least keep Nash and Hira on their toes for a while, Simon said, feigning regret. I can lend him the 300 million. Kai's eyes reddened, already disregarding Walter's words. You don't need to, Kai. Duncan waved his hand quickly. I'm giving it to you. You don't have to pay it back. Kai interrupted what Duncan was going to say next. That is to say, you're covering this 300 million for me, Kai? No. I'm gifting you the 300 million, and then you give it to Simon. Kai was truly riled up, but he still had a hint of rationality. There was a difference between lending money and giving it away. Seeing no way out and with Kai being so direct, Duncan reluctantly agreed. The three quickly concluded the transaction. Kai said, We've provided the money. I won't be showing up after this. I hope you handle things well. Don't worry, Mr. Kai, if I can't handle Nash, I'll present my head to you. Simon confidently slapped his chest. The three toasted. At the Zabels' mansion, Nash and Brian were in a quiet room on the second floor, treating Scotty's injuries. Scotty's condition was dire, forcing Nash to use the divine needles. Brian assisted silently, continuing to learn the art of the divine needles from his grandmaster. Downstairs in the living room, the distraught Hira sat on a sofa, her eyes red from crying. Lauren sat beside her, constantly comforting her daughter. Meanwhile, Justin sat in a corner, chain-smoking. The ashtray next to him was filled with cigarette butts. On another sofa, Harrison gently consoled Zachariah. Don't be upset, Mr. Zabel. Nash's medical skills are unparalleled. If he says he can cure Scotty, then Scotty will surely recover. Zachariah's face was tear-streaked, making his wrinkles appear even deeper. Harrison's comforting words alleviated some of his distress. Suddenly, a mocking voice resonated. Arrogance without substance. A person with a narrow view lacking morality. Efforts to mimic the virtuous are fruitless. Without virtue or talent yet still so arrogant. Everyone turned toward the entrance. Christian, holding half a bottle of liquor, staggered in. Seeing Christian, Zachariah furiously shouted, Who let you in? Get out! With a mocking expression, Christian asked, Uncle Zabel, tell me, what use is your martial virtue? Zachariah, brimming with anger, shouted, Didn't you hear me? Get out! Someone! Throw Christian out. Zachariah trembled with rage. A group of youngsters in martial arts uniforms exchanged glances, but no one dared to approach. He was the eldest disciple and the only great grandmaster of the Hero Martial Arts School, and his strength even surpassed that of the headmaster. We practice martial arts, not just for physical health, but also to protect our family. We need to see who the other party is first before treating them with virtue. What's the difference between preaching morality to beasts and talking to a brick wall? Chapter 224. Christian took a fierce swig from the liquor bottle. Zachariah was rendered speechless by Christian's words. He knew Christian was still resentful about the slap he had received before, especially since he had been driven out of the Zabels in front of everyone. Christian was right. Zachariah was too concerned about saving face. Martial arts competitions were always about stopping at the right point. However, for the sake of pride, he did not intervene when the Ihara Martial Arts School broke the rules during the first match. Due to his pride, even though he knew the Nihon competitors were ruthless, he allowed Skade to compete. Had he put his pride aside and stopped the competition when the Ihara Martial Arts School broke the rules, Skade would not have participated in the second match and would not have been so gravely injured. At that moment, Nash and Brian came down from upstairs. Everyone's eyes were immediately on them. Hira stood up and approached them, asking, Nash, How is Kate doing now? Nash showed a slight smile. She's no longer in a life-threatening situation, but she'll need some time to recover. Then, he turned to Brian. Follow the prescription I gave you. Add the herbs to boiling water. Let it simmer on high heat for 30 minutes, then add turtle shells and simmer on low heat for another 60 minutes before consuming. Brian held a prescription full of medicinal ingredients, nodding in response. Okay, I'll prepare the medicine now. Nash approached Hira, wiped away her tears, and softly asked, Give me Bianca's phone number. Hira did not ask why and quickly retrieved Bianca's number for him. Nash took out his cell phone and dialed Bianca's number. A man answered, his voice somewhat effeminate as he said, Bianca is training. She doesn't have time to answer calls. Nash inquired, Is she at Neo Power Club? The man on the other end, noticing that a woman's name was displayed as the caller ID but a man was speaking, asked, Who are you? Nash's voice grew colder. Answer my question. Whoa now, little guy. You're quite arrogant. I won't tell you. Come and hit me if you can. With that, there was a sarcastic laugh. Fine. Wait for me. Nash hung up, took Hira's car keys, and drove straight to Neo Power Club. He left so hastily that Zachariah did not even have time to thank him. Neo Power Club was located in downtown Johnfort in an 18-story commercial building. Inside, it was filled with gym equipment with punching bags hanging from the ceiling. In the center was a large octagon cage. Bianca, in boxing attire, was practicing with a muscular man inside the cage. Every so often, the man's gaze would drift toward the contours of Bianca's body. Noticing his wandering eyes, Bianca sped up her punches, with the final blow landing squarely on the man's face. Ouch! The muscular man clutched his nose with a painful scream. Bianca, taking off her boxing gloves, threw them at him. If you look again, don't ever come back here. Exiting the cage, a red-haired woman chewing gum handed her a bottle of mineral water. Bianca, a young man was looking for you just now. A man effeminately dressed in women's boxing attire and wearing makeup spoke in a feminine voice. Bianca inquired, Who was it? The effeminate man said, I think the caller ID was Hira, but it was a young man who spoke. Ack. Before he could finish, his ear was suddenly twisted by someone. Turning to see the person responsible, he shouted, Who are you? Nash slapped him to the ground. Didn't you ask me to come here and hit you? Recognizing the man's distinct voice, Nash immediately identified him upon arriving at the club. The effeminate man covered his face and began to cry. Help! He's attacking me. Bianca, please teach him a lesson. Coach Calcraft. So it's really you. A rare smile appeared on Bianca's normally cold face. Nash nodded, regarding this afternoon's boxing challenge. Chapter 225. The security guard at the entrance was thrown forcefully into the club area. Everyone was startled by this sudden scene. They looked toward the entrance and saw a large group of sturdy men. Leading them was a cold beauty with a high ponytail. She had a pair of black boxing gloves around her neck and was occasionally blowing bubbles with her chewing gum. The people of Neo Power Club began to murmur amongst themselves. That's Wanda. She's quite pretty. I heard she was trained by Thorson. After returning to the country, she dominated the Sagan boxing scene in just 3 months. She has a demeanor similar to our Bianca. Both are cold-faced beauties. Can Bianca beat her? Who is Bianca? Wanda, leading her group, walked into the club, her icy gaze sweeping over everyone present. Bianca stepped forward. I'm Bianca. Wanda spat out her gum. Let's start. Bianca was taken aback. Here, Wanda sneered. And, I don't want to kill you in front of a crowd. It'd be troublesome. Bianca looked at the redhead next to her. Rose, get my gloves. As Rose went to fetch the gloves, another group arrived. It was Simon, the lane's bodyguards, and an old lady with silver hair exuding a cold aura. A stage 9 grade grandmaster. Nash narrowed his eyes. If he was not mistaken, this old woman was one of the juggernauts of the Green Bamboo Association. Theo said that the Green Bamboo Association's 10 juggernauts were all involved in the Young Family Village tragedy. All 10 juggernauts were on Nash's hit list. Tonight would be a time to increase his KDA. Wanda had changed into her blue boxing outfit and was warming up after putting on her gloves. The crowd in Neo Power Club was again in an uproar. Damn! They're huge. Definitely D cup. They're several times bigger than Bianca's. Simon's bodyguard set up 2 folding chairs. With a smirk, Simon gestured for the old lady to sit. Please take a seat, Madam Grim-Faced. Grim-Faced Juggernaut took a seat, and someone from the Green Bamboo Association quickly lit a tobacco pipe for her. After a few puffs, she turned to ask, "Is that young man in the suit Nash?" Upon spotting Nash, Simon involuntarily shuddered and said, "Yes, that's him." The old woman showed no emotion but was internally shocked. Hidden Ghost Juggernaut had told her Nash was young. She guessed that Nash was probably in his 30s. However, seeing him now, he looked only in his early 20s. Judging by his appearance, he was estimated to be only 23 or 24 years old, a few years younger than her granddaughter. It was really hard for her to imagine how a young man in his 20s could cultivate to reach the profound reality realm. Nash had initially come to stop Bianca, but seeing that Wanda displayed no inner energy, he changed his mind. Bianca was strong, and this was her turf. She had a slight advantage. Even if she were to lose, it would be impossible for Wanda to kill her. Johnford's boxing champion versus Sagan's boxing champion. He wanted to see how much potential Bianca truly had in boxing. After putting on her gloves and warming up, Bianca entered the octagon cage. Wanda followed suit, and the two stood facing each other. Bianca glanced at Wanda's impressive physique and asked, "Are we following professional match rules?" Wanda shook her head and said, "No rules. Today, our goal is to beat the other to their death."